Let me share my screen.
Yes, sir.
Just a moment. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are. My name is Gift Piyo, lecturer at the Department of Management and Commerce, DMI St. John the Baptist University, Lilongwe, Malawi. I hold Bachelor of Science in Development Economics from Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources, Malawi, and Master of Public Administration, specializing in International Development Policy and Governance from China Agricultural University. In today's lecture, we are going to be talking about cost minimization and profit maximization from the perspective of the production theory. The ultimate goal of every business is to make and maximize profit, be it the business that is into production, distribution, retailing, or wholesaling. The goal is to make and maximize profit. And in the course of maximizing the profit, the businesses opt to minimize the cost. Because when we are talking about profit, we are talking about the difference between the revenue, what the businesses get after sales, and the cost that they incur. So in today's lecture, based on production theory, that will be talking much of the business that are into production. So before we begin, let's try to answer two questions. When and how the businesses achieve cost minimization and profit maximization. So to begin, profit maximization occurs when a business firm produces the level of output that maximizes the difference between the revenue and the cost, which is the profit. On the other hand, the cost minimization occurs when the business firm produces the given level of output at the lowest possible cost. But how does this happen? So let's start with cost minimization. First way is to optimize the input mix or the input combination. So here we are talking about choosing the optimal combination of inputs to minimize the cost. And of course, avoiding the wastage, thus reducing the waste and inefficiencies in production process. So by doing the two, businesses can actually minimize the cost. And by optimizing the output level, businesses can actually achieve profit maximization, thus producing the output that equates the marginal revenue. We shall understand what marginal revenue and marginal cost mean as we go along with this lecture. And another way to maximize the profit is to set optimal price. That's setting the price that will maximize the incomes or the revenues. The outline of this lecture, we are going to look at the production function, cost of production, and profit maximization. At the end of it all, we shall be able to figure out the economic concepts and techniques that can be applied in business to achieve cost minimization and profit maximization. All right, let's get started. Production function. You should have a picture of production process in your mind. I believe everyone has ever done a simple production or has witnessed someone doing the production process. Even in the kitchen, when you are to produce or to make yourself lunch or breakfast, whatever, you're doing some sort of production. You mix up things, and what come out is what you eat. That one is the production output. So what I'm trying to drive at is that when we are talking about production, we simply mean the transformation of certain things into another things. So for the production process to happen, it means there has to be some resources or inputs. In economics, we have what we call economic resources, the basic ones being land, capital, labor, and management. So when we mix up these things, we transform them into a certain product. That's a production process. So when you are talking about production function, we are actually talking about the relationship that is there between the inputs that are put into the production process and the output that comes out of the production process. So you see that different quantities or qualities and the combination make up different output. So if you choose, let's say, poor quality inputs, what will come out will be, of course, an output that is of poor quality. So what you put in determines what comes out, meaning to say there is a kind of technical relationship between the two. We can illustrate the relationship that is there between inputs and outputs mathematically. That's the one that you can see on the screen. Y equals to the function of x's, where y represent the output or the quantity of the product, and f is the function, meaning that y is resulting from or depends on the x's, which are the inputs. So having this mathematical model, you can actually know what to put in, how much to put in for me to get how much. So let's say you want to get, you are in agriculture production, you want to get, maybe you're producing rice, so you want to get 100 metric tons of rice. So you can tell the inputs like chemical fertilizers and other kind of stuff that are required in the rice production, and you can determine how much chemical fertilizer you can put for you to get the 100 metric tons of rice. All right. There are two basic choices that one make when actually when producing. So either one can increase the inputs in the same proportion and see what will happen to the output, or you can choose to change the proportions. Maybe you increase the proportion of one input and reduce the proportions of the other inputs and see what will come out. So the characteristics of production function is that the output is an increasing function, meaning to say if you increase the x's or the inputs, the output is also gonna be increasing. Yeah, and there's also another characteristics, which is input substitution. That means the inputs can be substituted. I'll give the same example in agriculture industry where we have chemical fertilizers and organic fertilizers. So you can choose to substitute, instead of using chemical fertilizers, you use organic fertilizers and see what will happen to the output. Well, output optimization. So when you're trying to maximize your profit, you think of optimizing the output, because the higher the output, the higher the profit that you make. So the process of optimizing the output, it's where you basically find the best input combinations that will maximize the output level. So we have economic concepts that are used to tell the best combination of output. For illustration's sake, I'm going to be using 2 inputs, which is capital and labor. So we'll be talking about capital and labor throughout for illustration's sake. So one of the concepts is isoquant curves or lines. The isoquant curve is the curve that shows all possible combinations of 2 factors that produce a given output. So you have different possible combinations that will produce the same level of output. So it's kind of contour. So the level of output produced is the same, but the combination you can alter, you can choose to increase one input and reduce the other, or you can choose to have the same proportions of the inputs like that. So that's the example of the isoquant curve or isoquant line, where it represents the possible combinations of input. In this case, we are talking about capital and labor. So we have point A, B, and C as our points of illustration. At point A, we have capital, 20 units, and labor, 5 units. At point B, we have capital, 10 units, and labor, 10 units. And at point C, we have 5 units for capital and 20 units for labor. So what we are trying to say, at all these levels, you are going to come out, or we get the same level of output. So it's now for the business field to decide which combination it should take so as to minimize costs, at the same time to maximize the profit. Now you have so many isoquants representing different levels of output and different levels of input combination, and you decide to choose which output level that you want, then you check the combination, input combination. But then using isoquant curve alone, you cannot tell the best or the optimal combination. So you better think also of another way that will help you to actually choose the best combination of input regarding or considering the cost. So now the cost that we're talking about here, we are talking about cost of the resources or the inputs. So to determine the optimal combination, we use the ISO cost line, which is also a curve that is to do with the costs that are incurred in the production process, blended with the isoquant curves that is showing us the possible combinations, giving us the same level of output. Now the ISO cost line or isocost curve is a graph that shows the various combination of input that can be purchased for a given total cost. So you have your combinations and you attach the price tags to the inputs and see how much is the total cost. So you can have also possible ISO cost lines, so several of them. The one that is closer to the origin of the graph shows the lowest cost possible. And along all these ISO cost lines, there are different points that represent different input combinations. So the optimal combination, if we take these two concepts, the concept of ISO quant and ISO cost, the optimal combination that will yield maximum output and the lowest cost possible is the point at which the ISO quant is a tangent to the ISO cost or the cost line. So this is the illustration of the same. As you can see, we have 3 cost lines, the green one, the yellow one, and the black one. The black one is close to the origin. That means that one represents the lowest total cost. But then our ISO quant is tangent to the yellow ISO cost. So the point at which these two meet, it's where that gives us the possible optimal combination of input that will give us the maximum yield or maximum output. At the same time, we incur the lowest cost possible. Well, we have talked about cost. Let's now dig deep into the costs that are incurred in the production. So basically, the costs that are incurred in the production process are classified into 2. We have explicit costs and implicit costs. When you're talking about explicit costs, we are actually talking about the direct payments that we make towards the resources or the inputs that we are using in our production process. For example, the wages that we pay to our employees, the rentals, whatever we pay using, we pay directly, that's explicit costs. On the other hand, the implicit costs are the opportunity costs. When you're talking about opportunity cost, you don't actually pay, but you forego the opportunity for using the resources that you already own. For example, if you are operating in a building that you own, there's opportunity cost there. That building would have been rented out for a certain rental fee that you'd be getting. So you are losing that rental fee. That's a cost for you. So it's an opportunity cost. You are not directly paying, but you are foregoing that opportunity. So these are 2 kinds of costs that we actually encounter or incur in a production process. Now let's look at the conceptual periods in the production process. We have short run and long run. Mind you, when you're talking about these periods, we are not talking about calendar periods, but rather the conceptual periods. What do we mean? These periods are the ones that are determined by the firm, how quick that firm or business firm is to respond to the demand changes of their product. For example, if you are producing something and unexpectedly the demand for your product has risen, how quick you adjust your quantities so as to meet your demand determines the period now. If you take long, that's long run. If you take short, that's short run. So in production, there are some other adjustments that can be done within a short period of time. while other adjustment can take long. For example, to expand the film, talk of extending the factories, that one can take so long. But if you want maybe increase your employees, you can do that within a week or within a day or within a month. So that's short run. So what we are trying to say is that in short run, we have fixed plant. Yeah, the plant is fixed. It is the period is too short for the film to alter its plant capacity, but it is long enough to allow the change in the extent to which the plant's current capacity is used. You can increase the number of employees, you can use the shifts, but the plant remains fixed in short run. And the output vary with the varying of some variable resources. For example, the labor, materials, and other resources that are put into the production. While when you're talking about long run, the plant is variable. It can be extended, can be expanded. So the period is long enough to adjust the quantities of all the resources that it employs, including the plant capacity. So let's see the illustration. The Boeing hires 100 extra workers for one of its commercial line plants, or add an entire shift of workers. That's a short run adjustment. But if it adds a new production facility and installs more equipment, that's a long run adjustment. So a reminder again, we are talking about conceptual periods. Well, in short run, a firm can for a time increase the output by adding its units of variable resources. For example, labor. If you are adding variable resources to a fixed plant, the output will increase for a time. And beyond a certain point, the output will start to decline. But why is it so? Now, this brings us to the law of diminishing marginal returns. So the answer to the above question are provided in general terms by the law of diminishing returns. So this law states that as more of variable resource, in this case we are talking of labor, is added to a fixed resource, for example, land or capital, beyond some point, the extra or marginal product that can be attributed to each additional unit of the variable sources will decline. So at the beginning, as you add more variable sources, as you add more workers, for example, the production will speed up, the output quantity will increase. But beyond certain level, if you continue to add the workers in the fixed plant, the output will start now to go down. There won't be an efficiency in the working environment because there will be more workers in a limited space. So that will lead to the decline of the output. But this law assumes that the technology is fixed. Thus, the technique of production do not change for a time. That's the illustration of the law of diminishing marginal returns. The first column shows the units of the variable sources, and in our example, we're talking of labor. And the second column is for total product. The third one is marginal product, and the fourth one, average product. So let's concentrate on the first and the second columns. So you can see from zero production to the first, from zero labor to first addition of our labor inputs, we are having the increase of 10. So it's from 0 to 10 on the column of total product. And when you see the change on the third column, we are seeing the increase is 10. That's the difference between 0 and 10. And if we continue to add the labor from 1 to 2, the output or the product, we are producing 25. And the difference there is 15, 25 minus 10. So not from 2 to 3, the difference starts to dwindle. We can see that rather from 3 to 4, we can see that now the difference is 15. From 20 is 15. Then from 15, the difference is 10. Then from 10, the difference is 5, 0, then negatives. So as we continue to add the workers on a fixed plant, the change in the output begins to dwindle or to decline. So that's the diminishing law of marginal returns. So that's what I have just explained. At the beginning, the additional variable source will increase the output at the increasing rate. Then later, in additional variable source, we use the additional input at a decreasing rate. If more variable source is added, the output will tend to decline. Now let's get back to the cost. Now that we have understood the periods, short run and long run, let's see the cost in the short run and long run production. So in short run, since we are saying the plant is fixed, so the costs that are associated there, we have fixed cost and variable cost. When we add the two, we have the total cost of short run production. Now, when you're talking about fixed costs, we are talking about those costs that do not change or do not vary within that particular period. Costs, for example, the rental payments, the interest on the firm debts, the insurance, these costs are generally fixed. On the other hand, we have variable costs that do vary with the level of output. So as we are changing the cost, as we are adding more resources, the variable sources, the cost will continue to change. At the same time, the level of output will also be changing. So the cost for this includes cost for materials, fuel, power, transportations, cost of labor, services, and all other similar variable resources that are used in production. So this is the calculation that I just talked about, that for you to get the total cost in short-run production, you add the total fixed cost and total variable costs. And we also have other calculation for the cost. You may want to maybe calculate per unit how much each unit is costing you to produce it. So we have average fixed cost, where you divide the total fixed cost by the quantity produced or sold. Then we have average variable cost, AVC, which is total variable cost over the quantity. Then there's this cost that is most important in as far as making marginal decisions in production process is concerned. The cost that we call marginal cost. Marginal cost is the extra or additional cost of producing one more unit of output. If you want to produce additional product, how much additional cost are you going to incur? So this one coupled with what we call marginal revenue, you'll see as we go along, will help a business to determine or to make what we call marginal decision. That's to determine how much to produce and what price to charge. So when you're talking of marginal cost, we are talking of change in the total cost divided by the change in the quantity produced and sold. So that table gives illustrations of the calculation of all costs incurred in short-run production. The first column is showing us total product output, the output that is produced. Second column, total fixed cost. As you can see, we have 100 US dollar throughout, so it's fixed. Then we have column 3, total variable cost, column 4, total cost, which is the addition of total fixed cost and total variable cost. Then we have the average cost data. On column 5, average fixed cost, which is the fixed cost divided by the quantity, which is our total product. And average variable cost, which is variable cost divided by quantity. And we have average total cost, which is the total cost divided by quantity. Now at the end, column 8, we have marginal cost, which is the change in total cost divided by the change in quantity. Now let's get to long run production cost. So in long run, since you've said all variable, all resources are variable, the costs that are associated with long run production are all variable. We don't have the fixed cost in long run production. So the costs are calculated in terms of average total cost. So again, here we can also calculate marginal cost. So the marginal cost can be calculated or can be defined as the change in long run average total cost divided by the change in quantity produced. So like if we are to put that in this table, the cost that will be considered will be the long run average cost, not this total cost, which is fixed cost plus variable cost. Since we are saying in long run production, there is no fixed cost. Now let's get to marginal analysis. Marginal analysis, it's the process of making marginal decision, which are basically the firm's decision as to what output level to produce, and the decision to produce a few more or few less units. So the firm or the business would have to think, should I produce more units or few less? So to arrive at that decision, you do what we call marginal analysis. And this marginal analysis helps the firm to determine the level of profit maximization. And when you determine that level, it's the same level that will tell you how much to produce and what price to charge. So what you're saying, marginal cost coupled with marginal revenue enables the firm to determine if it is profitable to expand or contract its production. Now let's get to the last part of the lecture, that's profit maximization. As we have already seen from the start, that the goal of every business is to make and maximize the profit. So the firm has to select the price to charge and to determine how much it needs to sell in order to maximize the profit. But how does this happen? Well, there's an economic guiding rule, the principle that guides the business decisions. Just imagine yourselves taking your lunch. The way you decide how much to eat is the same way how the business firms decide what to do to maximize the profit. How? Let's see. You eat another bite as long as that bite gives you more enjoyment than misery. Yes, if you start feeling pain in your stomach, you continue eating. When you have eaten enough, that one more bite would actually cause you more misery than enjoyment. Then you actually stop eating. Yes, in the same way, for a firm to attempting to maximize profit, the firm sells one more unit of its good or services as long as the additional revenue obtained exceeds the additional cost of supplying and selling that last unit of good and service. So if the additional revenue is less than the additional cost, then that's misery to the business. It has to stop at that and maybe actually produce at lesser output level than the more output level. So what we are saying, there is a certain point at which the business can make maximum profit, beyond which the business can start to incur what we call losses, because beyond that point, the difference between the revenue and cost is going to be negatives, because the costs are high than the revenues. So profit maximization is achieved when marginal cost, which we have said is the change in the total cost divided by the change in total products or total quantity, when this marginal cost equals marginal revenue, and this marginal revenue is the change in the total revenue divided by the change in total quantity. So when these two are equal, that's the maximum point of the profit. Beyond this point, the firm can start incurring some losses. So when the marginal revenue is greater than marginal costs, producing more will increase the profit. So if you're having your revenue greater than marginal cost, you can continue produce until you reach the point where the marginal cost equals the marginal revenue. On the other hand, when the marginal revenue is less than the marginal cost, producing more will lower the profit. That's beyond the point where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. You now start making lower profits, and in the end, you start making losses. For illustration's sake, let's look at the table. We have total output in the first column. Second column, we have price. Third column, total revenue. This total revenue is calculated by multiplying the output and the price. For example, at first production, if we sell that product at $1,700 US, then the total revenue is going to be $1,700 US. Then we have for column 4, which is average revenue. That's the total revenue divided by the quantity. Then we have marginal revenue, column 5, which is the change in the total revenue divided by the change in total quantity. Then column 6, we have total cost, assuming that these are the costs. At zero production and zero sales, we have $1,000 as the cost incurred. Then when you start producing, the costs start to increase. We have 2,000 to 2,800, 2,500, and so on and so forth. Then we have average total costs in column 7, and marginal cost in column 8, which is the change in the total cost divided by the change in the total output. Then the column 9, we have total profit. So as you can see in column 9, at first we are not making profit. There's actually a loss of $1,000. Then at first production and first sale, we have a loss of $300. Then we start making profits from second production, $400, 1,000, 1,600, and 2,000. Then at 60th unit, we have a profit of 2,000 again. So you can see where we have output of 5 units, we have the profit of 2,000, and again, where we have 6, we have a profit of 2,000 again. Beyond that, you can see that the profit has started now going down. We have 1,700, 1,000, then we have a loss of $900. So at this point, it's where we are saying it's the maximum profit, because beyond that, you start making a low profit and then losses. So you check the column 8 for marginal cost and column 5 for marginal revenue. You see that the amount there are equal. We have $700 for marginal revenue being equal to $700 for marginal cost. So this is the point where we are making or we are achieving maximum profit. As the rule says, maximum profit is achieved at the point where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. Now at this point, you can now check the output level, how much is produced and sold at this level. So you can see it is, we have 6 units from the table. And how much are we charging? We have $1,200 a unit. So at this point, the business can decide to be operating at this level, producing units up to 6 and charging $1,200 per each, making a profit of $2,000. If has to continue or to add more produce, for example, 7 or 8, you see that the profit will start to dwindle. So this is the marginal analysis that I was talking about that helps the businesses to determine the output level and again the price that would make maximum profit. So what we're saying that the firm will continue to increase output up to the point where the cost of the producing 1 extra unit of output equals the revenue received from selling that last unit of output, beyond which the firm can incur losses or can get some losses. But this assumes that the firm seeks to operate at maximum efficiency. If the firm is indifferent, it's not caring about efficiency, can continue producing more and more, but then the profit that it will be getting will be less and less. This is all that I had for today's lecture. I thank you for being a good audience.
Thank you for your presentation. And for our participant, if you have any questions for the speaker, please add them to the chat or you can raise your hand. Yeah, we have some questions here already read in the Zoom chat. This is visible from your side on the chat box.
Yes, I've seen the question. The question says, how does government intervention, just a bit, government intervention such as minimum wage, laws, taxes, and subsidies impact firms' ability to minimize the cost? Well, minimize the cost and maximize profits. Well, the government interventions are so helpful to the producers, but at some points, they can hurt the producers or the business firms. The intervention in this case, we are talking of minimum wage, taxes, and subsidies. When we're talking of minimum wages, maybe this one can have a negative impact on the businesses because the government can actually impose the minimum wage to the producers or the businesses, which to them can be can lead to high costs of production. Maybe the businesses were paying their employees lower to minimize the cost, but now government is coming in with the minimum wage, which is a bit low, a bit higher than what they were paying. Then it means the cost for that businesses are going to be high. And again, the taxes also adds cost to the businesses. While the subsidies impact the businesses positively, and they help them to minimize the cost and in the end maximize the profits. Because if the government gives subsidies to the businesses, the production cost will be lowered, and in the end, the profits are going to be increased. The other question, how does technology, particularly automation and AI, impact the traditional cost maximization strategies outlined in the production theory? Can technology always guarantee profit maximization? How does technology, particularly automation and AI, impact the traditional cost minimization strategy? Can technology always guarantee profit? Technologies of good impact to the businesses, especially in the context of cost minimization and profit maximization. But then the only challenge is when you the initial investment of the technology can cost high, but when it is leveraged, when it's installed, then the costs are going to be reduced, and that will guarantee the profit maximization. So the only cost that is incurred, it's when you, it's the initial costs when you're actually installing the technology. How can business strike a balance between cost? How can businesses strike a balance between cost minimization and maintaining a competitive edge in innovation and product differentiation? How can businesses strike a balance between cost minimization and maintaining? Well, competitive edge in innovation, it's actually good because you're trying to stand out, you're trying to be differentiated from other business or your competitors. But then you find that in the course of doing that, there is actually the cost that are incurred. Maybe you want to produce and sell premium products that stand out from your competitors. But the question now is, how can these two balance? Well, in technological world, I think using some innovative ideas and creative ideas, you can actually balance up instead of maybe using or hiring more labor. You can actually use high tech that in the end will actually reduce the cost. As I've already said in the previous question, the cost that is incurred when you are dealing with technology, it's just the initial investment cost, but as you go along, the cost become reduced. So if you are to be different from your competitors, at the same time you want maximize and minimize the cost and maximize profit, then you have to dive into the use of technology. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. Before I give decision for our participant, please open your camera. I will take a picture on the count of 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, another one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you for your question. Finally, we come to the end of visiting lecture today. We would like to thank you for Miss Piyo for the wonderful information and sharing your knowledge. We hope this information will be beneficial for our participants. At least we hope to have collaboration in the future with them as the gender technology. The visiting lecture for today and here. We appreciate you. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you so much.